Knudson,
What's up, Tursky?
this is Two Guys Talking Golf.
Another episode, baby. I'm excited. A lot of news.
We got ourselves a golf ball show today.
Which usually isn't that exciting. Usually.
This
is a little
one's kind of exciting.
Yeah, a little different.
All right, so the rumors are true. We heard for a while that the USGA was seriously considering rolling the golf ball back, bifurcating. This is really the first step into okay, it's serious. It might be coming. So the R&A and USGA this morning put out a proposal.
Yep.
So for the listeners, this might be a lot of reading, and we're probably going to get into some minutia and stuff like that, but we have what the USGA said. We got what they told to the manufacturers. We have a response from a PGA Tour player, and we have a response from Titleist. So we're going to go through all that. We're going to try to break down what exactly is going on with this new proposal, what the new rules would look like, when they might take effect, what has to happen between then and now for them to take effect. And let's just get started. Let's get right into it. Let's see what the R&A and USGA said. Yes, I have read all this, but I'm sure the listeners have not. Okay. So this is all based around a model local rule that the USGA sent out. So this is a model local rule. They call it an MLR. That's an option for golf balls to be used in elite competitions. So this isn't every single PGA Tour event will be mandated by the USGA to play a certain golf ball. This is just a model local rule that if the PGA Tour accepts it and the majors accept it, I guess the USGA run event, the US Open, they would have to, I would assume, if they believe in their own proposal. But it's not necessarily it would not necessarily be put into place as a mandate, but just an option. So they sent this proposal out to the companies yesterday, which would be Monday. They told them that they have time for feedback to provide feedback back to the USGA until August 14th, 2023. If adopted, the proposal would take effect in January 2026. So we're talking about multiple years down the road, which if it takes effect, the manufacturers might need some time, okay?
Oh, yeah.
To do all the research and design necessary. But so we're looking at 2026, and they better get their feedback in before August 14th. Okay. It states, golf balls that conform to the MLR, the local rule, must not exceed current overall distance standard limit of 317 yards plus 3 yards of tolerance at a modified actual launch condition with a club head speed of 127. So they're going to test their robot at 127 miles per hour based on a calibration setup of 11 degrees and 2,220 RPM. So that'll be their testing standard. 127 miles per hour, 11 degrees of launch, 2,220 RPM spin. The current testing procedure, as it exists, they tested at 120 miles per hour, calibration setup of 10 degrees of launch, and 2,520 RPM of spin with the same distance limit. So that means under the current testing system, pretty much every golf ball would be illegal that's on the market, that's used in the PGA Tour events, used by tour players. Most of those golf balls, or all of them, would probably be considered non-conforming or illegal. So the existing testing procedure right now, that's basically what all golfers in the world would be able to use. But they would be non-conforming on the PGA Tour or elite level competition. So that could be a U.S. amateur that Could even be college events like NCAA World Championships, or what else? What are other some big AM events? Mid-AM.
Yeah, I mean, junior AMs. I mean, it'd make the young guys. I mean, the young guys and girls do the same thing.
I'd be surprised if they did it for junior golf, but they could. They could.
I mean, a junior AM is nothing to. I mean, that's a huge achievement. I mean, that's not a joke, man. I mean, that's big. I mean, they might do it there. I mean, you could make an argument. Drive, chip, and putt is a big deal. I mean, realistically. But yeah, I see what you're saying. But yeah, I mean, big tournament. Yeah, you're not talking like club championship doesn't matter.
Maybe it will. I don't know.
It could.
Each club will have its own rule. If you decide that's an elite level competition and your club wants to use the old golf ball or a new golf ball, they would have that right. Okay, so the press release sent by the USGA continues. They said there's a direct correlation between club head speed and hitting distance. Over the last 20 years, hitting distance has increased on average by 1 yard per year. It says the modified testing setup in the proposed local rule is expected to reduce hitting distance by 14 to 15 yards on average for the longest hitters with the highest club head speeds. Right now, the fastest swingers on the PGA Tour, their average is pretty much between 126 and 127. So this is at like the peak of PGA Tour speed that they're going to be testing at. 127 is the new test. And they're going to restrict that to 317 yards. That's what I mean, 14, 15%, that's a lot. I mean, at a drive 14, 15%, 14, 15 yards on average for the longest hitters. So, on a percentage basis scale, I'm not sure if this is exactly how it works, but you would think the faster swingers get reduced by more yardage, like in total, than slower swingers. If you have a guy that's 112 miles per hour of swing speed, he'll hit it, slightly less in terms of real life yardage than the longer hitters. I think that's my understanding of it, though. There's other takes. I mean, there's people that say it is exponential like that. There's also people breaking down the math on whether that's actually true and whether it actually affects the shorter hitters more. I think that's more of a math equation. You also get into like how the particular golf ball is designed in terms of spin, launch, how that relates to your swing as well. But the USGA is saying 14 to 15 yards, less distance with this proposed golf ball rule for the longest hitters on the PGA Tour that average around that 127.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's one of those things where, everybody always debates, if you pull the game back, what do you do? And it's like, is it an equipment thing? Is it a ball? Is it a, whatever? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I've got a lot of thoughts on it. It's just, are we still going to go through some details, or are we just going to get into the talking of it?
Well, Mike Wan from the USGA, the CEO of the USGA, has a quote in here. We can read that real quick. Hitting distances at the elite level of the game have consistently increased over the past 20, 40, and 60 years. It's been 2 decades since we last revisited our testing standards for ball distances. Predictable, continued increases will become a significant issue for the next generation if not addressed soon. The MLR we're proposing is simple to implement, forward-looking, and does so without any impact on the recreational game. We're taking the next steps in this process, guided first and foremost by doing what's right by the entire game. I know my feelings on that. What's your immediate reaction to that quote?
He's right. I mean, the distances have gotten longer, but it's not all because of the equipment's better. If you look at players, young players coming up, getting in, going from high school to, from junior events to high school to college to, the pro level, everybody's just stronger, faster. They work out more. They do all these things. They're training like athletes, where before golfers were golfers. and they played golf and they hit balls and they practice. Now, if you don't have the gym routines and you don't have like the right diet and all these things, if you're not in peak physical shape for the most part, you're not going to hang with the biggest, longest hitters on tour. And these young people, like every sport, I mean, if you look at football, people are faster, bigger, stronger. Basketball, faster, bigger, strong. Athletes in every single sport over the past 20, 40, 60 years are bigger, faster, and stronger than the ones back then. Golf is no different. Golf, suffers from it. Or not suffers, but that's just what it is. The problem I have with it is the whole line of that is no impact on the recreational game. I think that's an absolute lie. I worked in a shop back in the early 2000s when non-conforming drivers were kind of a deal. And they basically made, like TaylorMade or Callaway, Titleist, whoever, they made two different drivers. They had two different heads. And they sat on the shelf, and they had a conforming head and a non-conforming head. And I wouldn't say every single, almost every single person who walked in there, because back then early 2000s fitting was extremely, there weren't a whole lot of launch monitors. The ones we had weren't great, all that. So a lot of it was you went out, hit it on the range, you kind of hit a few different things, and you kind of bought what you bought, and that was it. But nobody bought the non-conforming driver. At the end of the year, when you looked at the shelf and you're closing everything out, most of your stock was non-conforming drivers. And the reason being is because when the guy walked in and he goes, wow, there's new drivers, new TaylorMade, new Callaway, new whoever, Nike at the time, all those. They sat there and they looked at them. They're both the same price. And they basically said, well, I don't want to beat my buddy for a couple bucks on our weekend round and then listen to him complain the whole time that I've got a non-conforming driver. So I'll buy the conforming one. Well, I'm up 25 handicap. I don't, I play, a couple times a week, whatever. Nobody would buy the non-conforming driver. And the reason being is because, one, it's not what the guys played on tour, and two, they didn't want to listen to their playing partners or whoever complain that, they won the $10 Nassau and they were using a non-conforming club. Mm-hmm. So what's going to happen is you're going to have these balls that are, say it goes through. So everything goes through. And again, this isn't set in stone yet. But you have these balls. They're on the shelf at your local store right next. So say you got Pro V1s and you got, Pro V1, Pro V1X, and then you got conforming Pro V1 or Pro V1X. So however it's done. Mm-hmm. The guy who walks in there to buy some balls is going to do the exact same thing. I don't think golfers have changed that much in 15 years. But the golfer's going to walk in there and he's going to go, well, I can buy the non-conforming ball that goes a little bit further. We're not going to see 15 yards. I don't see 127. It goes a little bit further. Or I can buy the conforming ball and I don't have to listen to anybody, give me crap when I have a good round that, oh, yeah, of course you had a good round. You were playing a non-conforming ball. And they're going to buy the conforming ball. It's just, as much as all of us want to deny it as amateur golfers, no matter our handicap, whether we're scratch, whether we're 20s, whether we're whatever, we want to play kind of the same. It's just like when you sit there and talk with your boys and you watch a U.S. Open and you watch these guys, oh, man, this guy just made double bogey here and da-da-da-da. Man, what would you shoot there? What would you shoot there? Man, if you played from the tips at 7,700 yards, mm-hmm. We always want to compare ourselves to the best players in the world. And the only way to do that is to buy the same equipment that they have. And as much as we don't want to admit it, that tour player stuff doesn't sell, it does. It influences what we'll try and what we potentially buy. And this, while they think it solves just a problem on the PGA Tour side, it's going to affect recreational, regular golfers.
I 100% agree with you. I just don't see in what world that most higher end amateur golfers, to where it's like you go up, you show up to a course, maybe you have a realistic shot of breaking 80 and you do want to kind of compare yourself to the pros. Like when you hit a 300-yard drive, you want to know that, oh, I hit a 300-yard drive, which compares to a PGA Tour player. This is the average and we're using the same equipment. There is no other variable. With this, it's like, yeah, I wonder what I would hit it with the non-conforming golf ball. Maybe it'd be 12 yards shorter, 15 yards shorter. There's just now there's this confusion where now it feels weird. Now you're not playing the same game as the pros. And I think just the natural handicap of making the playing field more equal to where you're playing the quote unquote same course as the pros play the equalizer is already in place. You play at different tees. You play a 6,500-yard course instead of the 7,300-yard course, but you hit it so much shorter that these tees make sense. Now there's a whole golf ball that's different between you and the pros. I think that creates, it's just confusion, because when you go up in the pro shop, you see one that's like the normal golf ball that meets with today's parameters, and then you have the tour conforming golf ball where they differentiate it in some way. Maybe it's a red package instead of a blue, or a white package instead of black. Like, they're going to have to be identified in some way, because you're going to run into a lot of these circumstances when you're playing in a 2-on-2 Nassau against your buddies, or you're going out for like that fake Ryder Cup format, where you're on like a bachelor party or a guy's trip or whatever, and there's teams involved, and like there's betting, there's gambling. I mean, this stuff happens every day at golf courses. You're all going to have to decide on what golf ball to play. And then, like, the scratch handicap in the group, he's going to be like, oh, I've been practicing all summer with the new ball because I'm trying to get into the U.S. Open qualifier, and I got to get my yardages dialed with this new slower golf ball. And now we're playing the faster golf ball. I'm going to be flying all the greens. I don't know my yardages. So he's going to be like, let's play with the old one. It doesn't matter to you. And then the other people in the group, they're going to be like, well, let us play with the non-conforming golf ball. You're good. You can adapt as need be with the new golf ball. It's just like so much argument and confusion now in the amateur game, in the recreational game. I think the pros are going to be good no matter what. They're all going to have a regulated golf ball. They're going to be limited, which is good for, the argument is that it's good for the courses. It allows more courses to come into play. They don't have to be lengthened. You don't have to use more water. Whatever the argument is against the courses, like, this might help them. And the pros, it probably won't really matter. Maybe, there's a couple edge cases to where one guy hates it because he doesn't spin the ball enough already, and this doesn't play into his strengths, and the longest guys will be like, it's taking away my advantage, whatever. Those things can be argued. The people that it really hurts the most are, you got junior golfers who they're trying to train themselves to play in college and in the pros, and they want to play with the golf ball that the pros are using. So they're going to want to play with the limited, quote unquote, limited flight golf ball. There's a lot of people in positions like that. Maybe you're fresh out of college, you are an amateur, but you're still trying to qualify for events. But then when you play in amateur events, now your golf ball isn't conforming, or it's non-conforming, or you're giving up yardage. Like, those are such weird circumstances to navigate, to where, are you willing to take a disadvantage in this particular event just to get used to a different golf ball for future prospects? Like, what golf ball is that group of people going to use? And then you look at normal 12 handicaps, guys like me and you who are just going to go out. Are we going to use the pro golf ball, or are we going to use an illegal golf ball? And as golfers, I think we're naturally programmed to not want to do something illegal, because we always want to play within the rules. We want to see what we shot. We want to play the course as it lies, as we're told. And it's like, I don't want a more lenient rule system than the pros. Like, that's why I play a different tee. And that's why they do set up courses a little bit harder for those guys, to give them a little extra challenge. Now, this is a whole category by rule of different challenge. So, that being said, just our quick opinions inserted right there. The USGA, in their press release, they did mention courses real quick, and I didn't mean to cut you off, but I'll just read what they had to say real quick about courses. Okay, they said the findings of extensive research by the governing bodies into distance, along with the supporting research and data, were set out within the Distance Insights report into the implications of hitting distance in February 2020. So we talked a lot about that back in 2020, the Distance Insight report. There's two key themes: the pressure on courses to continue to lengthen, and ensuring that distance did not become predominant in the balance of skills required in golf. The report found that the overall trend of golf courses becoming longer has adverse consequences, including increasing cost and time of play, limiting the advancement of sustainability efforts, and reducing the challenge of courses, in some cases creating a risk of them becoming obsolete. So I think the courses, like, they at least had some impact on this proposal going out. I don't know what percentage of impact, and whether it's more of a course thing, more of an equipment thing, protecting the game, protecting amateurs versus pros. Like, there's certainly a lot that goes into it, but they were obviously considering courses being a factor in protecting those courses and, you know, making sure that old golf courses aren't completely obsolete. They're no longer options to play on the PGA Tour or in the majors.
Yeah. I mean, the thing with the courses, though, is that, I mean, I get that, you know, you can only, like, certain courses, you know, take like the Rocket Mortgage, because, you know, it's local. There is no place to expand anything. You know, there's no extra room that you can just take up and just go extend these holes and all that. So I get that. But the other part of the course is, look at course setup. Like, when the pros hit the fairway, sure, that like how many times do we see courses that have tons of undulation and stuff like that? Like, you look at, like, what is it, like Kapalua and stuff, where those guys are hitting 400 and some yard drives, but it's not they're carrying it 400 yards. There's a little bit of elevation, whatever, but then they hit the slopes, and they know where to hit these slopes and stuff like that on the fairways, that they roll another, like, 100 yards out. Mm-hmm. And pulling it back 15 yards, okay, there's a few guys who maybe won't hit those little speed slopes and won't be able to kind of play the fairway on those lines. But it's not going to be like we're not going to see 350, 375-yard drives out there anymore. Like, certain courses and the way they manicure those perfect fairways that are super firm and super fast, that stuff's still going to be there. So even though you maybe carry it 15 yards shorter, you might roll out to almost the same distance. And, you know, okay, so, you know, the guy, instead of hitting a 9-iron, is now hitting an 8-iron into the green. Mm-hmm. What did you really change? You didn't do much. I mean, that guy's still putting it 10 feet and still, you know, got a legit birdie shot or whatever it is. So, you know, as much as you're rolling the ball back and you're saying you're preserving the courses, I think a little bit of course setup would change that dramatically. Like, it, you know, soften up and just increase the length of fairways just a touch, shortens those guys up tremendously. You make the rough just a little bit longer. It doesn't have to be U.S. Open knee-deep stuff every week, but you let it grow just a little bit longer. Mm-hmm. And there's little things I feel like that you can do that kind of keep some of those old courses still in play that may not have been, you know, that may not be now or on the verge of kind of being obsolete. I think those little things there don't change anything for the amateur, because even at those clubs, you only keep those PGA what do you call it? The PGA setup. You only keep that for a short time after the event, mm-hmm. for a few people to play it, and then you go on your merry way back to the original, you know, however the course actually plays for the members. So I don't know. I mean, I think, you know, saying it's the, you know, it's saving these courses, okay, but I don't think 15 yards stops that. I mean, maybe if you're looking 10 years down the road when every single guy can carry it 350 on tour, and if you can't carry 350, you just don't play on tour. Okay, maybe that kind of solves a little bit of that issue, but still, I mean, I think that's a very small portion of what can save those courses. But it's, like I said, I think a little bit of course setup on some of those places can make a big deal as well. Now, there's certain courses like there's no chance, you know, some courses they're going to be 24 under, and that's just the way it is. But, you know, those are a little more rare week to week than the big tracks. Yeah, I mean, I think it does, like, effectively lengthen the course by a decent amount, because you think about, okay, maybe it's 14 yards on the drive, but then your 7-iron's now flying a little bit shorter, and you have longer in the green, so it might be a 2, 3, you know, maybe 4 club difference, depending on what the hole is, like long par 5s, long par 4s, where you're hitting a 3-wood or 5-wood or hybrid long iron on the second shot. It's like 15 yards on the hole. It might effectively reduce it by 25 yards now. But my thing is also, like, okay, how do you get a shorter golf ball? Most of the time, it's probably going to mean more spin. You know, I'm not a golf ball designer, but, you know, you're probably going to have to affect the cover, the construction. You're going to have to soften up the core.
to make it a little bit slower. But now these guys are going to be spinning it a little bit more. So what does more spin mean? Maybe more extra control on their long irons and their fairway woods. And maybe they will start hitting more fairways or hitting it straighter. More spin could mean more offline, but most of the time it means you got more control, especially for pros, more control over your golf ball and where it's going. Like, Tiger throughout his career, he's always played a golf ball that spun a little bit more than everyone else. He kind of took the hit off the tee in terms of spin. Like, could he be hitting it longer? Maybe, if he played a lower spin golf ball, but he didn't want to give up that control with his irons and around the greens and the feel off the putter face. Like, some of these guys might thrive with a little bit more control. You talk all the time, or you talk to the older players all the time. With the Balata golf ball, they had so much control. The ball was zipping everywhere, and it's like, we're getting more towards those days where it might help guys in certain ways. Guys that like to work the ball, or guys who are really good at controlling trajectory. Like, maybe that will identify a little bit more of a skill set difference between some of these guys, to where it's not just tee it up, hit it as high as you can with the lowest amount of spin you can, and that's going to be the distance you play. Maybe now it is more value placed on creativity, shot making, thinking your way around the course. Like, I wouldn't say it's necessarily a bad thing for, when you start going like down the lines of thinking that way. Like, does it identify the better player or does it not?
Yeah.
Does it do a better job of identifying who the best player in the field that week is and who knows the course the best and was able to perform the shots the best? I don't know. Maybe it does reduce like the necessity of driving the ball farther and farther and farther and farther. But that being said, there's always going to be guys that, they value speed and creation of speed. We've seen flexibility and strength training and just the focus on equipment improve so much with that focus on distance. I don't think that's going to stop. I don't think people are going to stop trying to swing it harder and, eclipse the 127 top end average that exists. They're always still going to be fighting to get more yardage. So it just kind of changes things at the top. But as for the relationship between professional and amateur golf, bifurcating that, I don't know. I think it's just so confusing. The manufacturers probably hate it because now they need all new tooling. They need new research and design just for a professional golf ball. Some companies might consider being like, all right, we need to focus on the amateurs or we need to focus on the pros. So let's put everything into that, and then the other golf ball suffers on the other end. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because it's like, how can you make a top end for everyone? So now you have to spend more and more and more money to satisfy the look from the pros and the literal sales from the golfing public. So it's confusing.
Yeah, well, and think about like you said, all of a sudden you have research value, you have these balls. Now all of a sudden you run a shop. You've got whether you're green grass, whether you're a local shop, whatever, and you carry all these golf balls. Well, now you got to carry a conforming version, whether there's one or two or however many there are, from Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, Strixon, Bridgestone. They're all going to make one. So now you got to carry all those, and now do you have to bring in more SKUs, or do you just say, heck with it, I'm not going to carry these things, and I'll just cater to my amateur players, and that's it. But like I said, I've seen firsthand something like this happen, and it didn't go great, and you were stuck with a bunch of non-conforming stuff at the end of the year. Now, golf balls is maybe a little different, but I think it's and then like you said with the distance thing, the top end guys are going to lose 15 yards. Well, what's a guy like, what's a Kisner type guy or a Luke Donald type guy? Like, what do they lose? Do they only lose 8%? And then does that mean they catch up a little bit to those guys? Because then in a sense, like the guys at the top kind of lose a little bit of that advantage they had of gaining speed or being born with that speed or whatever. But then, like you said, the workability, the guys who can control it, whether it's right to left, up or down, they can control the spin or whatnot, they may thrive more. So certain golfers are going to get punished with a new ball, regardless of whether it's distance, whether it's control, however it is. And yes, a lot of them will adapt because they're that good, and they'll figure out a way to play whatever ball you put in front of them. But there's going to be some guys that, like, what is it? I remember when they were getting rid of the long putter. What was his name? It was was it like Carl Pedersen or something like that? Played the broomstick for a long time, and when they basically told, like, hey, the anchoring stuff's going away and all that, like, I think he even said, like, I think he even admitted something, like there was a story out or something that basically he was even like, yeah, like, this is gonna, like, just staying on tour is gonna be tough, like, this is gonna make a huge difference. And I think the ball is the same way. There's guys who they've never had to work it really, in a sense, they've had to work it for a living in a way. Like, they played their tendencies and they play their shots, and yes, they can hit a fade when they need to, but now that fade isn't here, it's here, or whatever it is. Like, those things are going to change, and it's going to affect everybody differently. And certain guys may struggle to either keep cards or win as many tournaments as they're used to and stuff like that, and other guys could flourish from it. And it's really going to depend. But like I said, the biggest factor for me is at the retail level or the amateur level. I just don't see good coming from it. Because as much as you want to say it's not for you guys, don't worry about it, we're going to worry about it. We're going to worry about it. We're going to want to play it. We're going to want to try it. And like you said, the simple boys trip, Ryder Cup style, what ball do you play? Does somebody care? To the club championship. Like you said, what if there's the guy who's competing every year for a club championship? There's a couple guys who are scratch plus handicaps or whatever. What ball have they been playing all year? Have they been playing, another one, and now all of a sudden or they switch back or whatever, or, and also on the pros, like, it's a local rule. Like, how are you going to tell, like, 1 week you go out and you play, the Valspar and you're playing the limited ball, and then the next week you go play, whatever tournament, and they're like, nope, use whatever you want. Like, are guys really going to switch between the two?
I think the PGA Tour and the majors and all that, they have to all be the same. That would be way too chaotic. You show up for the Valspar, use whatever golf ball you want, and now the golf ball I've been playing all year, practicing, dialing my yardages and stuff, now that's going to put me at a disadvantage. Of course I have to play the actual golf ball. Like, they can't be changing week to week. But
no. Even though they said it's not, like, set, but it's still, it's got to be. You got to have some consistency there.
Yeah,
but
how do you regulate it, though? Like, are you going to just start cutting open every single golf ball that goes into play on the PGA Tour? Like, how can you verify that insert pro's name here actually used a conforming golf ball versus an illegal golf ball that's available to amateurs? Like, they're going to have to really have a way to be able to tell the difference between those two golf balls. Like, are you going to make it light red? Are you going to make it, blue or pink instead? Is everything going to have a dot?
It'll be something like that. They'll have to have some special marking on it. And what they'll probably do is just monitor a guy and look at previous, say, like, ball speeds, and say, smash factor for, like, a perfect strike is 150, right? Like, when you're on a launch monitor. Maybe the new one comes in at 147 or something is, like, the most you can kind of get efficiency-wise. And maybe they just start kind of looking at, your TrackMan. I mean, they use TrackMan on every event, and they just start kind of looking at your driver numbers.
I don't know. That's unreliable.
Tournament to tournament.
That's unreliable.
Well, I know, but I'm just saying. But it wouldn't be shocked if all of a sudden one guy starts coming in with a bunch of 150s or whatever it is, and they're like, hey, let me see your golf balls. And, check to see, does it have the little dot but all these companies, what they're going to do is they're going to come out with their whatever ball with a little mark on it some way.
Yeah.
It's going to have some type of mark that's going to say it's conforming or not. And, like, with our photos and even with stuff on TV, when they zoom in on putts and stuff, trust me, fans of golf, people who watch golf are going to see that mark or not see that mark right away. You're not going to get away with it very quickly.
Yeah. Well, I guess it'll be similar to, like, the groove rule, but this feels a little bit different with it being the golf ball and something you use on every shot. And the fact that, like, people use golf balls from 8 years, 10 years, 12 years ago all the time. Like, you might have a stash of golf balls just chilling in the bottom of your golf bag or in a barrel somewhere or a bucket, and it's like, all these are now illegal, so I have to buy new golf balls now.
Yeah.
That's where I think it might be good for manufacturers at some point and just really bad for amateurs. You know, if I go out, I'm not a pro, but I want to play the golf ball that the pros are playing. I don't want like some sort of advantage for no reason. So now I want to play with the golf ball they're playing. Everything now that I use has to be a new golf ball. I can't use like a Pro V that's sitting in my bag. That's the, 2019 version, because this ball now flies 15 yards farther than the new one. It's like, that part's just really confusing to me, and I don't know how they're going to solve that. Whether it's just like, all right, get rid of all your golf balls from all time, or else we're going to be cutting your ball open to see if it's legal. Like, I don't know how they handle all that, really.
Well, how about this? How about if you're a member of a club, you're a great player, and you have the possibility of, getting into like a U.S. Open. You're that good. You're on that level. You're going to have to play that ball. I'm pretty sure your club range doesn't have the conforming golf ball in it. So then how do you practice to get ready for that you go out and play for sure, but if you want to sit there and get on the range and work on a few things, dial in some yardages, whatever, those are probably not conforming golf balls. So then all of a sudden, how you try? You got to figure out your yardages again.
Even if the range has real Pro V1s and they're all new and stuff like that, now you're
probably not conforming
15 yards farther than you would have been otherwise, or 12, whatever, depending on your speed. But you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. Or like you said, if you've got your launch monitor out there, you're hitting balls because you're that, like I said, that caliber player. Or when you go in for a fitting, what ball do you play? I mean, like most indoor places, like Club Champions, could just have kind of a bunch of each laying around, like they kind of do now. What ball do you play? And they have typically, everything there. But yeah, where do you go to like an outdoor fitting place? And, where it's not like, they fit you with a premium ball, but it's not necessarily of everything. Now do you have a stock a conforming ball? Because now you're getting fit for driver, irons, whatever. And now, like you said, potentially launch, spin, ball speed, all those things are different now. So now we're trying to dial in the right launch characteristics. If you play the conforming ball, you'll probably want to hit that when you're getting fit as opposed to the non.
Yeah, now every fitter has to have a stock of both. Because when you walk up, now the first question is going to be, you play conforming or non-conforming?
Yep. Exactly.
Okay. So let's get a response from Titleist, because they officially put out their company response. Okay. They did a little intro with just like USGA and RNA, put out their et cetera, et cetera. Okay. Here was like their real response. And I quote, "Golf is an aspirational sport, and we believe at its very best when equipped." I messed up. Hold on. And we believe at its very best when equipment and playing. Did they make a mistake or did I?
I mean, I'm going to go ahead and say they probably had about 25 people proofread this thing. So I'm going to assume.
I'm just going to skip right by
but I don't know.
Not important. Golf is an aspirational sport, and we believe it's at its very best when equipment and playing regulations are unified. Golf's health and vibrancy are at historically high levels. As we see it, existing golf ball regulations for overall distance and initial velocity are highly effective. During the past 2 decades, PGA Tour average course playing length has increased by less than 100 yards, and scoring average has remained virtually flat. Average PGA Tour club head speed of 114.6 miles per hour in 2022 was well below the current 120 mile per hour and proposed 127 mile per hour testing conditions. The proposal of golf ball bifurcation is in many respects a solution in search of a problem. Under the proposed guidelines, events that adopt this MLR, the local rule would require players to use a substantially shorter golf ball similar in distance to what was available in the 1990s. The performance changes of any rolled back ball would impact every shot in the round. Players would also be required to adapt to changes in equipment, with some players disadvantaged over others by this disruption. Golf ball bifurcation would invite confusion as to what level of competition would use the MLR products and how to effectively manage and officiate. In addition, multiple versions of golf ball models in the market would be confusing to golfers, which is kind of what we were saying. Playing by a unified set of rules is an essential part of the game's allure. It contributes to its global understanding and appeal and eliminates the inconsistency and instability that would come from multiple sets of equipment standards. Unification is a powerfully positive force in the game, and we believe that equipment bifurcation would be detrimental to golf's long-term well-being. As a result, we will actively participate in this conversation with the governing bodies, worldwide professional tours, PGA organizations, amateur associations, and federations, and golfers in an effort to contribute to the continued enjoyment and growth of the game. End quote.
Yeah.
And that was was attributed to President and Chief Executive Officer of the Acushnet Company, David Maher.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that. Well, yeah, I mean, Titleist is the number one ball in golf. I mean, it's undisputed. They sell the most golf balls out of anyone in terms of, and all of a sudden you're this leader in this category, this technology, all that. You're making the number one selling product, and now all of a sudden you're told to, hey, we know we've got all these millions and tens of hundreds of millions of dollars into R&D and production and all these things to make this ball. Yeah. And now dial it back. It's like, what? Like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I get it from their end. I mean, there's probably many more things beyond just that. But, I mean, if you're the number one at something like they are in this category, and then we told, hey, you know what? We're turning it back, and, all that tech and all that research and all that stuff that you've done, they've probably got the next couple Pro V1 versions in kind of like development. Scrap it all and, start making another ball.
But it's also like, don't scrap it all, because you can still sell. You can still sell those to amateurs who don't care about playing the ball that the pros play. And it also puts people in a weird position that do want to play with the ball the pros play. Because some guys, they probably don't care. They don't want to use something that's like inferior or limited in any sort of way. And they're well within their rights to play with that golf ball that's available. They have in their bag. They don't need to buy something new. And the USGA is telling me that it's legal, so I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
But there's going to be a segment of golfers that take it like more seriously, or maybe they want to compare themselves to the pros a little bit more. You're going to have that segment that's calling them a cheater. So now they're being peer pressured to play with a shorter golf ball. Like, that's almost inevitable.
Exactly.
Too. Because if you go to any course, you just get lined up with a random foursome. Chances are one of those people is going to be decent at golf. They're going to take it very seriously, and they're going to call you a cheater for playing the non-conforming golf ball.
Yeah. I mean, and they may not be as serious, like, oh my gosh, you can't play it. But just the fact that they'll give you a little bit of, somebody's going to give a little crap either way.
And that's enough for some people to be like, all right, I'm just going to play this ball. I don't want to get made fun of.
Or how about, like, just think about, I mean, and you think about all the things that could happen in terms of this change, but, like, there's a ton of people out there who review equipment on YouTube and post numbers, like the boys at TXG who do a phenomenal job, all that. Well, now do you disclose which ball? And then if you're hitting a driver and say one guy uses a conforming ball and, oh man, the stealth went, or whatever driver went this far. And then the next review is like, oh man, I was hitting it, 15, 20 yards farther. Like, now all of a sudden just that kind of stuff becomes interesting of, what do you watch then? Or how do you ingest that? And I mean, there's just so many things. But again, like you said, this confusion at the retail level when, that nice aunt who wants to buy you a box of nice golf balls for Christmas because I love my nephew Tursky. He's such a good kid this year. He's been a great guy. I'd love to buy him a box of golf balls. And she walks into the shop and says, want to get my nephew. He plays golf. He played in college. Man, and the guy's going to be like, well, you can get a conforming ball or non-conforming ball. And she's going to go, what? Yeah. I don't play golf. Like, what?
Now she's going
to buy one. And then she's going to buy one, give it to you, and then you're going to be, thankful for the gesture no matter what. But then all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh, I don't play this ball. I play the conforming one, or I don't play and that, it's just, I don't know. There's just, like I said, that it's, as much as they don't think it'll affect the amateur everyday golfer, it's going to have a huge effect on it.
And I know there's the big argument of like comparing sports. Like people always compare it to, it's the wood bat, aluminum bat argument, or you look at like tennis, or I'm sure race car driving, or what are some other sports where equipment would be regulated? Yes, these sports have evolved with the sport in terms of like dialing back what they need to with the rules. But my thing is that golf is just different because I can go play Bay Hill and I could play pretty similar setup to what they played at the Arnold Palmer. I could go get a tee time at TPC Sawgrass, play their tees, play exactly what they're playing, and there is like a huge lore to that. There's a huge draw to that when you're watching golf on TV, really, it's the same golf that's being played. But now, when they're hitting a 7-iron versus an amateur hitting a 7-iron, the launch conditions and the speed and spin rates and everything is different now. So now you're playing something that's completely foreign to them in all ways. Now, not only are they more skilled, they're playing cooler courses, they're better. Now they're playing a different golf ball too. So you're just not even in the same stratosphere, which I know for me, like as a younger player and now, like I don't want there to be some huge separation. I just want to work hard and get, hopefully, aspirationally, as good as they are. And I want to have like a level playing field to be able to test my game against them. So that's why I personally don't like it. I guess we haven't said like our real opinions about it. I don't like it from that perspective just because it puts like kids and amateurs in really weird and uncomfortable decisions in terms of making a choice. And now there's all sorts of like pressure on bad golfers to play a golf ball that's, you know, it's not as long, it's not as good. Now there's pressure for them to switch into a new system. And there's pressure on kids too. Like, you know, in the short term, am I going to play this golf ball, but I'm going to lose the event? But, you know, and just have faith that it's the right way to go about it. I don't know. I would feel bad. I feel bad for kids like playing the AJGA and, you know, high school golf aspirationally trying to get to college, like with that decision. I know we're only talking about 12, 15 yards, but it is more than that because it's a mental, competitive, like now it's a social thing. You know, what side do you want? It's just like really unnecessary, I feel like. There's already people who feel weird about playing the right tees for them.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, how many people, I mean, like you said, every weekend you can go to some course and watch some guys play from the tips who have no business playing the tips. And now they're going to be playing a shorter ball.
And everyone who plays
like,
the tips
that doesn't help.
Knows that they shouldn't be back there, but they either got peer pressured or like some just like self-applied pressure to that they want to see the entire course. Now they're going to be back at the tips, also playing with a shorter golf ball. Like, I think it increases pace of play, if anything.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. And, you know, like you said, compared to other sports, I mean, as much as like, you know, hey, you can go play in your baseball league that you play in. You know, say you play baseball in a league, and that's awesome. Like, you go out and play every week and all that. I mean, you could probably use a wood bat if you want to. But you know what? You're never going to be able to compare the home run you hit at the home track compared to Wrigley Field, you know, or whatever. Like, you don't get to go play there. So, like you said, golf has that unique thing where as much as it doesn't matter, it matters mentally to us of, like you said, I want to go to Sawgrass and play. And on 17, I want to, you know, those guys hit gap wedge and pitching wedge, and what am I hitting? And you compare yourself to the pros all the time. And it's easy, and it's probably one of the easiest sports to do that in, because yes, you can go play basketball and all that, but you know what? You're not going to shoot a three in the Staples Center or whatever. You know, it's like it's just not the same. So, you know, you can go play a lot of these courses, and you can, you know, recreate some of these moments you saw on TV with your favorite pros. And then, like I said, I mean, many people won't admit it, but the pros influence what we buy,
100%,
or at least what we try. Like, there's no way around that. And if anybody tells you that the pros don't influence anything I buy, it's a lie. Because when I'm in my league with a bunch of guys who have old equipment, and there's nothing wrong, I'm not dogging you, they have older equipment, whatever, I'll get questions all the time. Hey, I saw what's his name was playing this, you know, they talked about his driver. Man, what was he playing? He played really well. He won this week. Man, what is he playing? I'm like, oh, he was playing this club. And yes, they're not running out to buy it, but it piques their interest. And then when they do go buy something, they know, hey, like, oh yeah, so and so is playing this club. Man, maybe I should try to hit it. I should demo that.
Well, now,
you know,
like someone shows up. Say this is 2 years later. Someone shows up to the course. Scotty Scheffler just waxed at the players. They're like, I want to buy the Scotty Scheffler ball, and the person now has to go to you. Well, he plays this ball, but just so you know, it flies 15 yards shorter than this ball over here. So the guy's now put in a predicament. Do I buy Scotty Scheffler's ball, play like Scotty, or do I buy one that goes 15 yards longer? Awkward. Yeah.
Or
that's
the
an awkward
ever key
situation.
I mean, when Tiger was in his heyday, what's Tiger playing? You know how many sets of Nike blades we sold because Tiger played them? Do you think any of those guys should have bought Nike blades? Zero.
And also, here's the thing about it's the baseball argument that kind of makes me mad, because how many 22-year-old, so from 22 to like 90, how many people, even that watch baseball, are buying a baseball bat that they're going to go out and use from 22 to 90? Maybe you buy one in your lifetime if you're in a softball league. Even if you're a hardcore baseball fan. Wood versus aluminum has no bearing on the adult market of baseball watchers. In golf, this directly affects every single golfer.
Well, I'll even say this. So with baseball, like take a look, like I have a nephew, he's 8 or 7 or 8. I think he just turned 8. Either way. Plays baseball, loves it. Got some friends who play on like travel teams and all that. Like they, go all over playing baseball. These kids are pretty good, all that. What did my nephew want for Christmas this year? A wood bat.
That's cool.
And he doesn't play with it, but he has a little net. My brother set up a net in his garage so he could hit, he can hit and do all these things in the garage, practice during the winter and all that. And he's got a tee and all these things. And he's hitting with a wood bat. Now, is he going to play the wood bat in the game? No, because it's kind of a disadvantage. But again, he sees his favorite players. He sees Mike Trout or whoever playing these wood bats. He wanted a wood bat, so now he has one. Golfers are the same way. Like I said, he's not going to play with it in the game.
They're like souvenirs. They're like keepsakes. I mean, I have a couple wood bats from when I was young. I never used them, but they were more like one-off showpieces or some custom thing, or just something where I got like a broken bat in a game. Like, that's cool, but we always knew that the wood bat thing, that was for the pros, and we'll have some as a showpiece or a keepsake or something like that. This is so much different than that circumstance, in my opinion.
Yeah.
In my opinion. Because you have to go. Well, you have to buy at least 3 golf balls before you go play golf, and really, you're probably buying a dozen. So every single time you buy a dozen golf balls, you're faced with this decision. All right, who am I going to be playing with? Yeah. What event might be coming up? This, that. Now there's just so much variation. I've said it a million times already on this podcast, but that's just where my head's at.
Here's the one thing from the other side, and I'll play it this way. For the first couple of years, it's going to be a huge problem. Then after that, because again, here's like kind of the baseball kind of argument that lower levels, college, travel teams, whatever it is, they all use metal bats, even though their favorite players, who are playing, in the big show are wearing wood. Maybe after, if you stick with this for 10 years, whatever it is, maybe then there isn't a problem, and you just realize that's just the way it is. But it's going to take a long time for it to get that way. And you're going to have to basically program the next 2 generations of golfers to say, it's okay to play this ball, even though the pros are playing a different one. But it's going to take a long time. And I don't think it's a 2-3 year thing. I think it's like 10 before that starts playing into effect. And the people go into the shop and they buy the non-conforming ball because they're never going to play in the U.S. Open or, a qualifier or a big event. It's going to take a long time to program the golfers to do that. And that's the one thing I can say is that maybe, 2036, maybe we don't have a problem buying a different ball.
Yeah, I just think there's too many people on the fringe of that amateur versus pro. And then when you start talking about quote-unquote elite level competitions where there's amateur events where maybe hundreds of thousands, millions of people try to qualify for those. Now, all those people have to play with this new conforming golf ball. They have to get used to the limited flight and the way it spins and all that. So, like, you have to be playing that golf ball in advance. And companies can't just, like, you know, with the groove rule, everything past a certain date was now designed with the conforming rules. So you can't buy a new iron that has V grooves that are illegal. You know, everything past this certain date. You know, if you're playing something before that, you have to get it checked, or you look up whether it's legal or not. With golf balls, it's so much more complicated trying to figure out when it was made, like the year. Like, I can't look at a Pro V1 golf ball and just depending on the font and what's on the side, what year it was from. So I don't know whether it's conforming or not. These companies are going to continue making both conforming and non-conforming golf balls that hit the market. So all the golf balls, say you look in a cactus or, you know, a fescue and find a golf ball. It could be legal. It could not be. You know, it's not like there was a cutoff where you're just going to not find as many Vokey wedges from 2000 to where it even matters whether they're legal grooves or not. Like, you can't buy it anyway. With this, you're going to be able to buy conforming and non-conforming at the same exact time from the same store, from the same manufacturer. The balls are going to look pretty similar. There's going to be one small little designation. And I think it just opens the door for so much cheating in the amateur game and in your local scramble. Like, oh yeah, I know we're using the you know, conforming golf ball, but you know, on this long drive hole, I'm gonna bust it open. I'm gonna use the 50 yard long one, and I'm not saying that I would ever do that. I'm sure 98% of golfers wouldn't do that, but it leaves the door open for it, where it's like, oh, he won the long drive, huh? Let's test out his golf ball. Let's cut this thing open. Let's see what it really was. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, and I think you're very generous with 2% not doing that. I think it's far greater.
Okay, so let's hear from a PGA Tour pro real quick. Greg Moore. I'm not out at the Valspar this week. Greg Moore is though, and I asked him just to get a couple opinions from some of the guys out there. He officially interviewed Doug Gim on the record, so I'll just read his thoughtful and somewhat long response. So get out your popcorn. He said, I'm a little indifferent about it. I do think it makes sense that they're trying to do it. I think when it comes to the argument that the distance between the longest guy and the shortest guy will be the same is not quite correct because it's exponential. I think guys that hit it the furthest will be affected the most, and the guys who don't hit it as far because they don't spin it as much won't be affected as much. Because I'm assuming if they roll the golf ball back that it will be spinning more, but at the end of the day, everyone is really good out here. They changed the groove rule on the irons, and guys seem to be hitting it closer from the rough than ever. At the end of the day, if you're a really good player, you're going to figure it out. So I don't foresee it being a really big deal. I'm sure club manufacturers are not going to be happy. Ball manufacturers are not going to be happy. But I feel like it's not going to be as big of a deal as people think. The same guys are still going to be playing really well. It's in order to protect the golf courses that we already have. Obviously, land is getting scarcer and scarcer. Water is becoming scarcer. I think there's no more room to expand courses, so they have to roll the golf ball back. And then Greg asked a follow-up, good follow-up question, Greg. He said, what if, you tighten the fairways at 320, you grow the rough up, faster greens, kind of how like they've been doing now. He said, I understand that argument and I feel the same way, but when it comes down to it, when a player decides not to use driver and he uses 3-wood instead, it's like playing in the NBA without being able to dunk the ball. At the end of the day, it's a product that we're trying to sell to people. And the same thing with the designated events. It's all about the product and what the fans want to see. Fans don't want to see Rory hit a 4-iron off the last tee and still be able to hit a 7-iron into the green and win the event. They want to force guys to hit driver. When it comes down to that, it makes the product more compelling. It makes it easier for club manufacturers to market their drivers. When I think of certain tournaments like DJ winning at Oakmont, he striped the drive on the last to win the event, and I'm sure that sold a lot of TaylorMade drivers. At the end of the day, and then he kind of cut himself off, ... He said, I asked Jim Furyk the same question when we played in a practice round at Shinnecock in 2018. He said no one wants to watch someone hit a 5-iron off the tee each time because it's just not an appealing product. So there are cases that golf balls getting longer and longer, distance, more distance. At some point, guys are just going to be hitting 3 woods, 5 woods, irons. They're just going to be laying up on all par 4s because they don't need to hit driver. They can hit it so far and so accurately with a long iron. We're talking about a super extreme edge case that, 50 years down the line, if it continues. But I guess my quick rebuttal to that would be there already are regulations on the golf ball. There already are regulations on equipment. Like, are we hitting to that point? That question has been being posed for years now. Like, are we at the point where things can't improve? And you look at golf ball companies now, what are they doing? They're trying to increase aerodynamics in slight ways for particular golfers. They're trying to manipulate spin versus launch. They're trying to get more stability in the air. Like, there has been no innovation that's going to take the golf ball up 5 yards, because I don't think 5 yards is even there under the current rules and regulations. You're not just stopping it at a point. You're taking it back, way back. So it's like right now when you're watching an event, you're not like, oh, these guys are just laying up everywhere. I don't see that. I mean, maybe you see more 3 woods off the tee now and like par 5s, long par 4s. Maybe you see 3 woods creep in on some of those tees and it's like, oh, why is he hitting that? To lay back from the pinch. But that happens, 1-2 times an event. Or on a particular hole.
And again,
but I don't think it's like completely ruining coverage and fan involvement, fan engagement, because guys aren't hitting as many drivers as they used to. So I just personally don't see that as like, the number one reason why we have to switch.
And honestly, the guy who's hitting 4-iron off the tee on that last hole to play it safe and win the tournament, if it's only a 15 yards with a 127-mile-an-hour driver, that means it's less for the guy who doesn't swing it that fast, which means, okay, maybe he doesn't have 4-iron. Maybe he hits 5-wood off the tee then, and he still lays up, and he still hits, it's not going to all of a sudden be that drastic of a difference where I'd have to hit driver now because I got to make up 50 yards. I mean, if the guy's going to hit 4-iron or 5-iron off the tee to lay up, he's just going to move up another club, maybe, whatever, and then hit an iron into the green. I mean, it's one of those, that's not going to stop that from happening. If it's, a guy's got a 2-stroke lead going into 18 or whatever, 1-stroke lead going into 18, he plays it safe, he's playing it safe. And that doesn't necessarily say like, oh, he's got a rip driver every time, but it's, I just don't think the change is that drastic where we're going to have to see, every player has to hit driver on every par 4, every par 5, the guys who are the bigger hitters who are going to lay up with a 3-wood to a certain yardage are still going to lay up to that certain yardage. They're just going to lay up with a different club. And that's, I don't think it changes that much. Maybe a few guys on the shorter end, sure, that may make a change. And the short hitting guys may have to hit driver where they would have hit a 3-wood. But those guys typically usually hit it pretty straight anyway. So it's probably not that big of a deal for them. But no, I mean, it's definitely interesting. It's gonna be interesting to see, one, if it passes, if it goes through, and then, like you said too, what's going to happen, to us average Joes.
I think they always talk about the product. Like, the product might improve because higher spinning golf balls, they're going to curve more, get a little more entertainment out of the pro tracer. See bigger draws.
Yeah, that's true.
Like trajectory manipulation. I do think it's going to benefit the shot makers at the end of the day, and it could be a little bit more entertaining for the viewers. But I just think in general, like, there's a difference between viewers and golfers, and the golfers, recreational golfers and amateurs, are going to be left in an utter state of confusion of what they should play.
Yep.
While they're watching the PGA Tour events, I think it's going to be more entertaining, or the majors at least, and it probably will bring a couple old golf courses back in the rotation. So I think it might accomplish, some of the things at the top level of what they want, but I do think that it kind of leaves other things destructed in its path. namely
Yep.
the amateur golfer, which is unfortunate because golf should really be about the amateur golfer, the guys who show up, on a random day on a local county course, or people who want to play for the first time, and putting any more barriers to entry. When a beginner goes into a shop, he doesn't want to be asked whether he wants to play the legal or illegal golf ball. He wants to be told how easy golf is, how much fun I'm going to have.
There's the problem.
And here's my new set. I'm excited.
Yep.
They probably want to reduce the amount of decisions that have to be made. But
that's what they do. You got to teach the marketing wise. It can't be legal, illegal. It's got to be like tour ball and regular ball. You got to have a better way to word it, because as soon as you say illegal, the guys gonna be like,
that's how they're going to word it.
Like,
in casual conversation,
for sure,
two guys talking off the podcast, and this is probably how we would talk about it. Unfortunately,
for sure.
Like, I don't want to make people feel bad for what golf ball they decide, but also if I'm playing a match against you, hell no, you're not playing the illegal golf ball. I'm not watching you outdrive me by 14 yards when I know that I'm 1 yard longer than you. We're not doing that. No, we're not doing that.
I wish I was all it was, but I think you outdrive me by quite a bit. I think I can play the regular ball and we still be okay.
That's not what this is about. But yes, I agree with you. All right. So that was the USGA golf ball new rule bifurcation proposal show. I mean, I think we eventually got to our opinions. We got everything we wanted to say out. At least I did. We heard from Titleist. We heard from Doug Gim. We heard from the USGA. And right now it's kind of just, we're in a sit and wait. So the first cutoff date, like I said at the top of the show, it's either August 13th or 14th. What was it?
14th.
So August 14th, 2023. That's when manufacturers are allowed to comment, like officially, back to the USGA, give their thoughts and concerns, which I'm sure there will be many coming from the manufacturers themselves.
Oh, yeah.
I can't even imagine. Whew. So they have until August 14th. After that, we'll probably be in another sit and wait of what's the USGA and RNA going to do, and then we'll see. If they implement it, it's going to be January 2026, the earliest. It says that in their proposal that's the earliest, so this cannot happen before January 2026, but I'm sure we'll know well in advance because, the Titleist, Callaway, TaylorMade, they're going to have to retool, rethink, and start rebuilding golf balls. They might have to put a whole another segment of employees and a new warehouse that only does tour golf balls, and then they're going to have an illegal section. That'll be a mess. That'll be an absolute mess. But we'll probably know before 2026. Who knows? Maybe they just cancel it. Maybe they're just like, nope, just kidding. This proposal was really dumb. Everyone hated it from all aspects, and it's not better. Or they're going to put it in, and we're going to see how that shakes out. But we won't know tomorrow.
Yeah. Nope. We had to, like I said, middle of the summer for them just to get their ideas and thoughts and whatever in, and then we got to wait to see whenever the response comes from that. So it'll probably be near the end of the year that we actually hear something.
It'll be interesting to go back to this episode.
Fall.
Whatever decision ends up getting made, we'll have to go back and grade our initial reactions to see how accurate they were and what's changed for us looking back. But for now, our opinions are officially on the record, and you can't go back and change them now.
No, I'm not. I mean, I know. I mean, like I said, I'm against it, and it's fine.
I agree.
So
I'm against it as well. For the pro game, like, I think we can argue till the freaking cows come home whether it's better or worse for the product, but I just don't see how it's better for, that fringe level amateur, for junior golfers, and for golfers who just want to play the same game that the pros do. So that's the side I'm on.
Yep.
I like the side with people, Knudson.
Me too.
You know why?
Me too.
We're just two guys talking golf. We're just two guys.
Two old boys talking
golf. All right,
golf.
so that was our episode for this week. No, I'm not at the Valspar, so we're probably not going to have too much news. We're just kind of sitting waiting for all of Greg's photos and his word from the ground. I guess just a quick note on the players. Rory is not very happy with his new Stealth 2. I don't know how much you want to say about that. But yeah, he basically came out and said that he switched drivers at Riviera. He got a little nervous that his former driver, the Stealth or the Stealth Plus, he really wanted to play that driver, but he felt it was going right up to the limit on conformity. He thought maybe it would have been over the minimum CT test, so he switched to the new one for conformity purposes, and he's not too happy with it.
No, but I'm not that worried about it. I mean, the stuff that those guys are so dialed in, and so the smallest minute changes in weight and things like that make a huge difference to them, where we don't notice those changes, or don't notice them as much. Most of us don't. So am I shocked that he hasn't found the right head yet? No, it's fine. It happens. There's a lot of guys who take some time to change, and then there's guys who switch right into something right away, and then they go through a couple of iterations, and then they may go back to it by the end of the year. So who knows? But he's just trying to find that perfect gamer. And, it's like all of us who had that 3-wood that we should have never let go years ago because we hit it so good, but we moved on to something new and shiny, and we wish we could, get the magic back. It's just the way those things are. And those guys, like I said, those CGs and those little differences between heads and stuff, it's hard to, him just walking in and getting an 8.5 degree head or whatever it is, 8 degree head, and putting a shaft on it and calling it a day. Like, it just doesn't work that way for them. So
it does.
I'm not shocked about it.
To a bigger topic at hand, which the USGA actually did address, which I'll read. But it speaks to the concern of using an old driver. So when you buy it new, it might be conforming, right? But then you use it for a year, for 2 years, for 3 years. Now all of a sudden the face is getting thinned out a little bit. Now, if you measure it, now it might not be conforming, which means that, if a player is using a driver for 2-3 years, is that now considered a hot driver? Does that now not pass because of usage? So just 1 second real quick, because the USGA did address it in their proposal. Because if you remember back, the Distance Insight report and stuff that came out in 2020 was also considering, or at least they were looking into, changing the equipment in some way. Like, are they going to roll back the driver too? And there's been all sorts of, ideas about what they should do and what they shouldn't do in terms of that. And they kind of addressed it. Not really, but the RNA and USGA are not pursuing a reduction of the CT limit or changes to the moment of inertia limit of drivers at this time. While not pursuing a reduction in the CT limit, the USGA and RNA are concerned that many of today's drivers exhibit levels of CT creep, meaning their CT values are appropriate at the point of manufacturing and initial use, but can become non-conforming after repeated use, especially at the highest level of competition. That's kind of what we're saying. Like, if Rory uses a driver for a year, 2 years, he's constantly hitting the center of the face. Now when he hits the center of the face, maybe he's not dealing with a legal driver anymore. Maybe now it's illegal where he tends to hit it. Anyway, this is contrary to the purpose and intent of the equipment rules. As such, the USGA and the RNA are undertaking a comprehensive investigation of this phenomenon. Further details on this topic will be forthcoming in due course. So they're saying they're taking a look at it.
Yeah, I mean, it is. It's, the metal fatigues over time, and it becomes, hotter and hotter, which is funny because people would always come into the shop and be like, my driver lost its pop. Like,
no, it gained its pop.
And back then, I think we believed it. Now, it gained it. Like, you want to find an old head that's hit a lot of drives. But from what I understood, though, a lot of like the tour stuff that goes out, they pick heads that are definitely hot, but they don't pick necessarily the hottest heads because they do want to account for the fact that if a guy plays that driver all year, by the end of the year, that thing isn't over the limit. So they pick kind of like a consistency of, hotness in a sense, for all the drivers that go on the van. They're never going to take the one that is like literally at the limit and put it on the van because they know, at the end of the year that thing could be too hot. So I think they kind of play into that. But again, that's probably under the assumption that their players are getting into the next driver the next year. So they probably only plan for it in like a 1 year increment instead of like multiple years. So I would really actually go check those guys who are still playing like old drivers like, 917s, 915s. Let's just see what Webb Simpson's got going there because he could have some super hot stuff in the bag. But no, I mean, I think if he's getting really close to the limit, like, I mean, there's it'd be the worst thing in the world to like show up at the Masters with a driver, you win the Masters finally, you complete the for him the Grand Slam or the you have all four majors, and then all of a sudden they test your driver and you're like, oh, it's hot. Like that's just not good. So
his comments gave me
you got to get it out of there.
Pause. However, because when the question of conformity or testing his driver comes up, he's like, ooh, I might want to switch to that new driver. So does that mean you knew it was hot before, but you were playing it? I'm not going to answer my own question.
That could just mean he's coming close.
Came to my mind when I heard the comments. I'm not accusing Rory of anything.
I mean,
but if you're reading in between the lines of what he said, if he thought it was on the edge and he takes it out, that kind of tells you where he thought his driver was standing prior.
Yeah, but I also look at it as he may not be there yet. He might be right at the limit, but how many more drives does it take to get it over the limit? And, if it only takes 1,000 more drives, well, that doesn't take very long for him to hit 1,000 drivers, with that driver in the course of a couple of weeks. So it could also be like, hey, I'm getting really, really close, but I'm not there yet, but I'm riding the line. So he may not be doing anything too illegal yet. Now, if we see that thing later in the year, then maybe
the USGA called it a phenomenon. So they are looking into it. They're going to figure out how phenomenal of an issue it actually is, and I guess they'll get back to us. Hopefully before January 2026.
Well, I think,
but
well, I think what they're trying to do is stop like the old NASCAR way of doing things, and what manufacturer would then do would make a driver that's conforming, but they design it where the fatigue would set in maybe even faster. Design a material that fatigues even faster, so that way if something was grandfathered in. Oh, well, it conformed when I first got it, and now it's way hotter by design that they can't say, oh, well, yeah, that happened. Look at the titanium. We can't help that. They're trying to stop those guys from getting those little, old loopholes,
no
there,
dirty tricks.
Which is it's totally fine.
No dirty tricks.
Because somebody would do it. Yeah, somebody would do it. Somebody would design a driver that fatigues extra fast, and they wouldn't market it that way. But all of a sudden, hey, yeah, our stuff is super hot. I don't know why.
With all this going on, it's like, why can't we just make golf more simple? We're like overcomplicating it. They just changed. They had all sorts of rules that just came out that they changed in the actual rules of playing golf, seemingly to make it more simple. And now this golf ball bifurcation thing, that throws a wrench in simplicity.
So 100%.
All right. That's all I got for today. Hope everyone enjoyed us popping off about golf rules. Hopefully next episode.
Golf balls, the golf ball show.
We just talk about the cool stuff and not rules and regulations and stuff. But this needs to be talked about. It's a big deal in the golf world. Like, you can downplay it and say, oh, it's not going to be that big of a deal. But when you're talking about two different categories of golf balls that you're going to have to choose from, that is a big deal to me.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So, but we'll see. Like I said, we're kind of in the holding pattern, and we'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens, in the future.
All right. In the meantime, enjoy playing with whatever golf ball you choose to right now.
Use them up before 2026.
Have some fun. Enjoy the simplicity of golf these days. Knudson, that was Two Guys Talking Golf, the golf ball episode. We'll see you guys next week.